Within the first few seconds of the interrogation, the very first question cuts straight to the heart of the issue. So, what do you think happened to the money? A simple question, yet one loaded with weight, because the missing cash is at the center of this entire case. The man sitting across from investigators is none other than Trooper James Welsh, a decorated officer known for his DUI arrests, but now he finds himself in the hot seat as a suspect. What started as a routine arrest quickly took an unexpected turn in Welsh's career. Nearly $3,000 disappeared from evidence, and only a handful of people had access to it. But what's even more suspicious is the striking coincidence in timing. Just days after the arrest, Welsh discovered a bag of cash sitting in his patrol car. The question isn't just whether this was an innocent mistake, but rather, if there was a deliberate scheme, who was behind it? As the details of the case unfold, the truth forces us to ask, was James Welsh simply the victim of a series of unfortunate errors, or did he use his position to cover up something far more sinister?
I started on the ones, I counted all the ones and wrote them on my tally sheet. And I started on the fives and kept going until I got to the 20s. Within all of the cash that was laid out, the $20 bills was by far the most we had to count in number. By the time they got through with the hundreds and fifties, they had already started on the 20s and got a big portion of them counted. When I say a big, they got a pile of them counted out. I don't know how many they were. It was enough, but they were still counting the 20s. Corporal Welsh, about somewhere in the middle while they were counting the 20s, told Baker to let him type the statement because he knew the details as far as what went on, because Baker was also dealing with a violator because he was DUI and he was going through the field sobriety process and doing the breathalyzer and all that good stuff. So Cam,
That's okay. Well, you've established his first name as Cam, so
Yes.
you're good. You can make note he's Cam.
A routine DUI stop quickly turned into something far more suspicious. A bag of drugs on the front seat, 2 large bags of cash in the back, and a driver who seemed completely unsure of where the money came from. Trooper James Welsh took control of the situation, but from that moment on, things started to take a strange turn. As the money was logged and transported to headquarters, a series of decisions made by Welsh raised serious red flags. Why did he transport the evidence alone, with no witnesses? Why were there 3 bags of cash at the scene, but only 2 taken inside the office? And most importantly, what happened to the $3,140 that went missing between the initial count and the final tally? Welsh and his colleagues insisted they followed procedure, but the facts told a different story. When the bank recounted the seized money, they found a significant discrepancy. Investigators quickly launched a probe, uncovering a critical flaw in the entire process. No cross-checks, no independent witnesses, and a complete reliance on the honesty of those involved. Was this a simple counting error, or was someone deliberately skimming off the top? With hours of counting stretching into the early morning, tensions mounted. Welsh, once a decorated officer, now found himself facing questions he had never expected. But what's more concerning is the possibility that what happened that night was just the tip of a much larger mystery.
So Cam basically wanted to help him out with the statement because he knew more of the in-vehicle particulars that Baker did not know. This, from what I gathered, Baker was dealing with the DUI. He was not dealing with the car. He had to concentrate on him. So Cam wanted to help him out with the statement part and where the cash was, what was going on in the vehicle, and as far as that on the statement portion of it. So when Cam started typing on the computer, Baker got up and helped him record make tally. I was still working on my own personal one. So let's try to catch up.
No, you're good. Go ahead. Yeah, don't talk.
Okay.
Because we're going to go back all over this, so it's all good.
Gotcha. So when I started counting, or when I got to the portion where I was going to start counting 20s, I asked them which stack they had finished with. I'll start on that one, that way we're not hitting each other and messing up each other's tally. So they said, okay, we're done with these. So I took these and put them on my desk, which was separate from where they were sitting, because I wanted not get involved with them, they not get involved with me. And I started counting. And when I got done with my stack of 20s, I said, did y'all separate these out and know how many you had here? Yes. How many do you have? I don't remember exact numbers, but we were off. And I was like, my head dropped. Because I know it took me almost an hour to count the stack of 20s that I was counting. And I said, we're already off. Let's stop.
Yeah.
We got to back up and punt.
Now you said you're off, so did they have more or less than you?
I don't remember.
That's okay.
I do not remember. I just knew we were off. And I knew we had more than twice as many to go.
Right.
So we were just going to get worse and worse and worse as we went on. So that was about the time Cam started back counting again. So at that point, it was 3 of them counting and 1 of me counting. Okay. And it was probably getting close to, I guess, about 1 a.m., 2 a.m. area. We've been there for a while counting. So Corporal Welsh and I decided, look, all right, let's figure out a way that we can stack these 20s up and try to get an accurate count, because we can't leave here until we're both in agreement that this is what we got. So what we did is basically start over on the 20s. The 100s were right, the 50s were right, the 10s were right, the 5s and the 1s were right. We were dead set on planting our flag on our numbers, on our tallies, on those denominations. So what we did is we took the whole stack of 20s and everybody grabbed some. Okay.
Everybody being who?
All 4 of us.
Okay.
And
so
we started
Cam, Baker
and Riker.
Okay.
So we put all the 20s in 50 counts of 50 bills. And we had them laid out on both sides of that big long partition on the desk on the side by the window. Well, yeah, it was by the other computer desk over here on the far side. And then the desk I was working on, we had stacks of 50 on that.
From his side of the story, he's portraying himself as a stickler to the rules, someone who wanted to make sure the count was 100% accurate. This could be perceived as a way that he's trying to avoid suspicion, rather than actually instructing his subordinates. But right now, it's too early to tell.
So once we got all that separated out, I think there were 2 stacks on the computer desk that were not quite at 50, and on my desk I had a short stack that wasn't quite 50.
Okay.
And then once we were in agreement that we had $50 stack, I say $50, 50, yes.
I understand what you mean.
50 bills
yes.
on each stack, we started counting stacks. And I had my cell phone calculator and I was doing the math on that. And then Cam went back and counted his 50 bill stacks. And then of course we manually counted the short stacks and got a number. And we were both in agreement at that time that I believe it was 4301 was the total amount that we had. Bills, 4,301 $20 bills.
Right.
Yes. He and I both were in agreement. We signed our tally sheets, and then I took that cash and I put it in 500 $20 increments and rubbed and banded them up.
Okay.
And within that, I had some evidence bags in my little go bag that I could take on seizures and stuff. That it was the largest evidence bags that we have, and 2 of the bags were full of the 20s, but nothing but 20s, and the other bag had the 100s, 50s, 10s, 5s, and 1s in it.
So you had a total of 3 bags.
3 bags.
Okay.
And again, make sure everybody was good to go. Everybody's planted their flag. That's the number we're going with. And I took that cash, put it in my patrol vehicle, and drove to Columbia to shop road.
All right. So you leave Sumter and you go to Columbia.
Yes.
Where did you place the money when you left Sumter and went to Columbia?
In my back seat.
Everything seemed to be under control. They recounted the money, sorted it by denomination, verified the totals, and sealed it in evidence bags. Every step followed procedure. But it's often in the smallest details where the biggest mistakes or manipulations happen. When Welsh left the office, he took 3 evidence bags, 2 filled entirely with $20 bills and 1 containing the remaining denominations. A significant sum, nearly $10,400, was now in transit, entirely under Welsh's control. This moment is critical. The evidence was leaving a supervised environment and was now in the hands of just one person. Another concerning detail: the evidence bags were sealed, but Welsh did not sign the seals. A minor oversight or something more deliberate? This meant that if the bags were tampered with and money was removed, there would be no clear proof of when or how it happened. From this point on, the chain of custody becomes murky. When Welsh left Sumter and headed to Columbia, the question was no longer whether the money was intact, but rather if something went wrong. When, where, and by whom.
Were the bags sealed, the evidence bags,
Yes.
were they sealed?
Yes, I signed the bag and dated it, but I did not sign the seal. Again, I signed it's always 2020.
It's all right, so you signed actually on the front of the bag or
Yes,
the back of the
on
bag?
the front of the bag with a date. I think at that time it was right at 3 a.m., so it would have been on the 29th, July 29th.
So I was scared. The following day, I called my stepdad, who's the sheriff of Clarendon County. I always call him for advice and stuff, and we sat there and talked about it, and he told me, he said, just call Paige, get this straight, But it was later on that evening when I talked to him, and so I said, well, I'm working tomorrow. I said, I'll go in before work, and I'm gonna call Paige and go by and see her and figure out what the best way to get this turned in with the least amount of damage to me. And I'll try to get this figured out. Well, didn't have time because this would be the 3rd. That morning, I got up, had to go do a small job. I have a plumbing and home repair business. I'm a contractor. So I had to run into town, take care of something. It took about 30 minutes, and I was gonna go home and go back to sleep. Well, anyway, I was on my way home that morning. Nick's called me, and he told me that they were missing.
A bag of cash mysteriously appears, an unchecked counting process, and most importantly, over $3,000 goes missing without a clear explanation. This is where the investigation begins to dig deeper into the inconsistencies in James Welsh's story. There was no recount after the money was sealed. Welsh simply relied on the figures provided by other troopers without verifying them himself. This raises a critical question. If there was an error in the initial count, why didn't anyone double-check before the money was transferred to the bank? Looking at the timeline, things become even more suspicious. The money was counted on the night of July 29th, but the discrepancy wasn't discovered until August 3rd. In between, Welsh had a 3-day weekend, a perfect gap where anything could have happened without immediate scrutiny. What's more concerning is that on August 1st, Welsh suddenly found an evidence bag full of cash left in the back of his patrol car. But instead of immediately reporting it to his superiors, he stayed silent for 2 days before finally mentioning it on August 3, only after Nick called to inform him that $3,000 was missing from the final count. Welsh claimed he was truly scared when he discovered the bag. But what was scarier, the fact that he found the money, or the fact that an investigation was about to unfold? If this was just an innocent mistake, why did he hesitate to report it? These are the questions investigators won't overlook.
$3,000 or over $3,000 from the final count. Or they took the money to the bank, and the bank says it was only like 107, something like that, and we counted like 110. Told him, I said, dude, I don't know, have a clue what's going on with that. I said, but I just went ahead and told him then, I said, listen, I found an evidence bag of money in my car. I said, it's not $3,000. I said, so it has, and it wasn't even counted. This fell in between the briefcase and my back seat. I said, so it has nothing to do with the missing money. I said, but tell me what I need to do to get this turned into evidence.
I say, Cam, go through your chain of command, inform your sergeant of the situation that you just told me. Get ahead of this before it starts looking worse than it already is.
Right.
I said, because our count that we had in the Sumter office is way off. That this does not help.
Nick's told me then that I needed to contact my chain of command, which I did. I called Peggy, or Sergeant DeVos. Then I called Lieutenant Dan back. And
Dan back.
D-A-N-B-A-C-K.
Do you know Lieutenant Dan back's first name?
Mark.
Okay.
Yep. So then I called them. I was already getting dressed because Matt told me, he said, just come on up to Central Evidence. And so I was en route to Central Evidence, went ahead and got dressed because I had to work that night anyway. and spoke with Dan back and all them. I got the central evidence, talked with Matt. Matt told me that I needed to go to Troop 1 headquarters and turn the evidence in over there. So I went over there, turned the evidence into Lieutenant Dan back and Captain Chris Shelton, Shelton.
Okay.
They counted it. It came up to be over $800.
Dan back and Shelton counted the money?
They did in front of me. It was $894. After that, we honestly sat around and waited a while, and then Major Patterson, that's Everett Patterson, showed up and gave Lieutenant Shelton, or Captain Shelton, a piece of paper, and he read it to me and notified me that I was suspended until we get this resolved.
All right. Instead of calling your stepdad, why didn't you call Paige on Monday?
I don't know. Just freaked out. Just dumb on my part. Scared to death.
Because now it looks like,
Yeah,
oh look, hey look, Nick's brings it to your attention, and
Right.
you're like, oh yeah, by the way, Sunday night I found, and here we are 2 days later. So that's where there's a lot of concerns there.
There's
So based off of this, we haven't been over your type statement yet. Did you take any of that money
out of
that seizure that y'all had?
absolutely
From the
not.
time you left that checkpoint to the time you went to post A, and from the time you were at post A by yourself, did you take any of that money?
No, ma'am.
Do you think anybody else had the opportunity to take any
Absolutely
money?
not. And one thing I will say, because I've been thinking of 100 different ways of how this could have happened. We were all together. I never even walked to my private, personal office the entire time we were there. Never left the room. Nobody left. We all sat in the common area, I guess you could call it, the entire time. The amount of missing money, and I know it's only in 20s, because they did tell me all the other denominations were correct. It was only 20s. That amount, that's over 150 bills. That's thick. Our uniforms are tight. I mean, I can barely put keys in my pocket in my uniform. There's no fitting a cell phone in your pocket, no nothing. It would have been very, very obvious if anybody would have grabbed a couple of 3 stacks or more than 3 stacks, stuffed it in their pockets.
So what do you think happened to the money?
I have no clue.
Do you think it's possible that y'all did not count the money correctly?
I think we should have done a much better job of counting.
Do you think it's possible anybody took the money? Let me just ask that for clarification.
There's no way.
Okay.
I mean, everybody that I have dealings with, I'll tell you, Matt, I'd bet my job on him. He wouldn't take a penny. My 2 boys that were with us, Baker and Riker, they wouldn't take a penny. I know I don't need it. I mean, not just saying, I mean, I work hard. I have a plumbing business that I make triple what I make with highway patrol. I mean, I just don't need, I've got almost 11 years in. I wouldn't need that. Matt's he's got a ton of time. He's got more time than I do. He did my background investigation back when I started.
Yeah.
I mean, he and we're not, I consider him a dear friend. I mean, we don't hang out socially. I only see him when we're in uniform. But I mean, he's a great guy. I trust him with my life. I trust him with that money, and the state should too. I mean, it's got to be a miscount.
Would you be willing to do a polygraph?
Absolutely.
A puzzling development. A bag of cash suddenly appears after 2 days of silence, a delayed confession, and an investigation that led to serious consequences. When the bank recounted the money, they discovered over $3,000 missing, and only then did Welsh conveniently find an evidence bag in his patrol car. But the key question remains, if this was just an honest mistake, why didn't he report it immediately? Instead, Welsh stayed silent for over 48 hours, only coming forward when confronted by his superiors. This not only raised suspicions, but also opened the door to another possibility. Was he trying to cover something up? As the investigation pressed on, more red flags surfaced. Welsh swore he never took the missing money, yet 2 separate polygraph tests on August 13 and August 31 both indicated deception. And in an even more damning move, before investigators could dig any deeper, Welsh factory reset his department-issued phone, erasing all potential evidence tied to the case. There wasn't enough direct proof to charge him with a crime, but the fallout was severe. Welsh was demoted, lost thousands of dollars in wages, and the once respected officer known for his DUI arrests was now forever tainted by scandal. The missing money was never recovered, but that doesn't mean the case will be forgotten. Meanwhile, Matthew Nix was also implicated, investigated for failing to follow proper money-counting procedures. Though not formally charged, both Welsh and Nix will carry the stain of this incident for the rest of their careers. The case may be closed, but the questions remain. Where did the money go? Who was responsible? And how much of the truth will remain buried forever? This wasn't just a procedural mistake. It may have been a carefully orchestrated scheme.